Hey everybody, it's Coach coming back to you. This is the final sea day of the third week of cruising on Carnival Vista. I had a session on what's different about cruising about a week ago, and I just wanted to share with you some more observations. So I guess this would be part 2 in that series, and I thought we'd start it off a little bit differently. I'm starting all the way outside our cabin. We were in 9202, as you can see. My wife and I got some pictures here up on the door, and because I wanted to do this because I wanted to share with you some things about being at the front of the ship that you may not know, which is kind of interesting. And even if you don't stay on the front of the ship, you can still take some of the advantages of being of what the front of the ship offers. Now, this particular cabin right here is referred to as a 4J cabin. And what's unique about it is it's a little bit more than what an interior would cost, but it comes with a nice size window, so you get that light and dark, and you don't know what's different and all that. Some people really like the interiors because it stays really dark and you sleep well and all those type of things, where other people are like, hey, I want to know it's daylight out. So you have that. And the other thing that I think is really unique and cool is they have these balconies at the front of the ship that are huge. They're shared balconies, so it's not your own private balcony, but you just go out one little door, and I'm going to show you that little door right now. All right, so let's go out there, and it might be windy out here, so I might not be talking. I'll just kind of show you around. The breeze is on our right currently, so I'll show you some of the breeze, and it was great to see the breeze in port yesterday when we were in Cozumel. It's another sign of change, another positive sign that cruising is coming back. We had 2 ships in port. That's the first time I've seen that. A couple things before we go outside that I wanted to talk about. I mentioned this before, you can't interview the crew members, but Kyndall Fire, who I've shared with you, has been amazing. She is having a Q&A session today, so I'm hoping to ask a couple questions of her and get some questions from other passengers. But again, her and her team have been, fun team or whatever, have been really great. Everybody's seemed to really love the whole experience. And so let's get out on this front deck. And again, this is a shared balcony. It's huge. There's a couple benches. You don't see very many people out here. So, you know, as you depart a port, a lot of people like to watch from these front decks, but not too many people take advantage of it. Maybe they don't know about it. So now you'll know about it. Okay, so we're going out this door. And again, this is right next to our cabin. And there's the breeze to the right, as I mentioned. Take a look at this big balcony. And there's stairs going up to deck 10. We're on deck 9 right now. Peaceful out here. It's not too windy, so I hope you can still hear me. There's the breeze. She's a beauty. Along with the vista, the water's pretty calm. But we're gonna go down to deck 5 in a little bit and go on our walk again. So I'll have you walk with me. I'm glad that it's not too windy. And we're going to stop and see some other things. I wanted to talk about what's changed, what's unchanged, and things that are in progress, in addition to some observations I've made over the first 2 weeks. My wife and I are going to stay all for next week. So, interesting little story about that. And it relates to COVID. So let's take a walk down the hall. And this is, as I shared with you in my previous walk, this is kind of a daily routine, especially on sea days. Not so much port days, but on sea days, I like to go down and see our friends Java Joe and company. get a coffee or two, and I'll have my music going in my ears, and I'll walk the panorama deck. That's deck 5, I believe. Yeah. We'll do that. So just walking through the hall here, pretty quiet. It is 8:30 in the morning on the ship. And again, try to take the stairs as much as possible. Sometimes when you're on the really low floors, you get to go all the way up to 9, like coming in from port. I'll take the elevators then. But especially going downstairs, that's easy. So always go down the stairs, and we'll start on deck 5 again. Well, actually, you know what? Let's go down to deck 4, and then we'll walk up. I'll walk you around there. So those of you that haven't been on the Vista can get a peek at some of the things that are on the ship that are unique. Yesterday, listened to, there's a trio, and that's pretty much, as I've experienced, the same on most Carnival ships. They have a trio of violinists, and violinists are amazing. 3 young ladies, beautiful young ladies that play just some beautiful violin. I'm walking into the Liquid Lounge now. It's very quiet, nothing going on. Still early, as I said. But those of you that haven't been to the Carnival, I will say the layout of this could be better, and that's been a complaint from people. As you see those beams up there, those really block view lines if you're sitting upstairs, and if you do sit upstairs, you kind of need to find yourself a seat front, middle, that doesn't have those beams blocking your view. Downstairs for the most part, but again, you have the beams blocking some of the lower seating's view as well. But overall, you know, not much of a complaint. I mean, they could have thought about that layout a little more. I'm interested to see Mardi Gras and what changes they've made, because I know some people have complained about that. So again, we're still on deck 4 right now. Okay, so one of the changes I've remarked about are the crew members all wearing masks. It's been wonderful not having to wear a mask, and you know, all the passengers seem to just really be enjoying the experience. So we're overlooking deck 3 here now, and you see the LCD column, the atrium bar. Hey, how are you, man? You're on a YouTube video right now.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, yeah, you're overlooking the atrium bar. So this is where you're gonna walk in when you board the ship, and the party starts here. And usually the violinists are playing just across the other side there, in this little area, and other musicians will play here. They rotate the musicians, of course. You could be here in country singing one day and something else the next. But yeah, so getting back to the mask. So you will see some crew members not wearing masks. When that happens, I've noticed, so for example, sometimes I've seen lifeguards without a mask, but it makes sense, because if you have to jump in water or something, you know, obviously you can't have a mask covering your face. Another time I've seen people not wearing masks is sometimes if you're cleaning and you're using chemicals, you want to be in that fresh air. So a couple situations. And then when there are people entertaining, so all the dancers, for example, none of them have masks on, because they're up there running around dancing, you know, for your pleasure, singing in the microphones. Kyndall, for example, the cruise director, when she's talking or hosting an event, obviously she's talking the microphone. She doesn't have the mask on. But if you see her walking around the ship, you'll always see her with a mask on. So it will be nice when they can take those masks off. Those of us that have to wear a mask at work and things like that, we know how annoying it is and how nice it is to take the mask off. So hopefully that change will come soon, but that's one of the things that have changed. But for the most part, cruising is relatively the same. A couple things I noted. Only one cabin steward most of the day. This was disappointing to hear. I thought they were going to be at 100% capacity among crew members, and I found out from my cabin steward that they have an assistant only part of the day. I think it was 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. These cabin stewards work so hard, as many of you know, and it's just a little frustrating to see them have to work so hard. I mean, I see them in the hallway almost the entire day and night, and cleaning rooms, everything else like that. So please take care of your cabin stewards above the prepaid gratuities. Those are a couple people that I always look to take care of a little bit more beyond the prepaid gratuities. The capacity is right now about 70%, as many of you may have heard, which is nice. It doesn't seem not crowded, but it doesn't seem too crowded, if that makes any sense. And so that 30% really does make a difference. One place I really have noticed it, my wife and I, we usually do anytime dining. You go on the Hub app, you put in that you want to check in for dining, and I've never seen it where it was not under a 10-minute wait. I mean, almost instantly when you plug in that you want to check in for dining, within 3 to 5 minutes, you're getting notification that your table is ready. And you just click on my way, head down there, and they take you right to your table. So that's been great. I know in the first week, there's some people complaining about service and how slow it was. Haven't noticed that for the most part, with the exception of there was one time when we went in for brunch and it was late, and maybe because it was late, maybe they didn't have all the food out still prepared or whatever, but there was hardly anybody in there since we got there so late, and we had to wait quite a long time. Okay, something else that's changed, COVID testing, and I'm gonna walk. We'll see some more of the ship here. We're gonna go through the casino really quick, so if it's loud, I may stop talking. Those of you that like the slots, you can see that, some of the tables in the background. Still pretty quiet. Oh, here is where the casino bar used to be. That's where the casino bar used to be. For those of you that have been on the Vista and remember the casino bar, that's where it used to be. That's where the machines are now. So, continuing to walk on down past deck 4, again, more slot machines. Morning. All right, we're gonna go past the skybox here. Olympics getting ready to start, and football training camps getting going, baseball pennant races in full effect, trade deadline coming up. So Skybox has been a good place to be if you're a sports fan. So continuing down deck 4 here, we're gonna pass the Limelight Lounge. Now, I mentioned another thing that's changed. Okay, they're not setting up yet, but last week, you see here talking about the mask and how to wear. This is outside the Limelight Lounge. I'm guessing because today at 11:15, my wife and I have to get tested, and the testing consists of you leaning back and them sticking essentially a Q-tip very far up your nose. So for those of you that have had to have testing that way, you know that can be a little uncomfortable. So not looking forward to that, but it's one of those things that has changed, that, you know, in order to keep the cruise industry going, they have to make sure that, you know, they're not carrying passengers back to back that might have COVID. So the 30%, part of the 30% I found out is for, they have a block of rooms where if they need to quarantine people, they can quarantine people until they can get them off the ship, apparently. And that's where they would put you. So I'm guessing, like, if we were to test positive, they would probably quarantine us in a separate section of the ship, and then I'm guessing we'd be booted off Saturday and obviously not be able to get on the cruise. So we're walking through the Havana bar now, and I'll get back to the COVID testing anyway. And those of you that know the Havana, here's the sign. Wristbands required beyond this point. So we're not staying in the Havana, as I've already mentioned, but there's your Havana pool, Havana bar. And we are on deck 5 now, which is my favorite deck. But yeah, getting back to the COVID, so it's necessary. You know, obviously we all love cruising. We all want to continue cruising. We got to keep these ships on the water. So, hey, I don't mind it. I don't like it, but I don't mind it. When we go into ports, you do have to wear a mask. And Roatan, for example, walked around there. I didn't notice it really being enforced. And there were some people that just flat out didn't even bother with putting a mask on. They just ignored the rule completely and walked around freely without a mask, and I didn't notice any security or anything stopping them. What was, I don't know, interesting, I guess, is when we boarded the ship in Cozumel yesterday, they're very, oh, no problem, good morning. They are Cozumel's very strict about the whole mask, and you wear them outside, certainly inside. And even getting on the ship after we'd already passed through security, the Carnival crew was telling us, please have your mask on. So I don't know whether there are Mexican authority there overlooking them and the people getting on the ship, but we had to have our mask on before we could even board the ship. And then as soon as we stepped on the ship, of course, everybody's taking their mask off. When you're on excursions, I mean, I guess it depends on the excursion. A lot of the excursions that we did, we were on a boat. So, I mean, people are taking their mask off right away on the excursions, and, you know, it wasn't a problem. So it's going to be a minor inconvenience. Now, there was one time 2 weeks ago when I was with my buddy Brent. We were walking in Belize, and I think it was me that didn't have my mask on for whatever reason. I think I was trying to unlock my phone or something like that, and a security lady came out and said, "Put on your mask." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, you know, I put it on, obviously, and no problem. But we also went to Cape Hawker, which is in the port of Belize, and the tour guides for that particular excursion, you met one of them, Natalie. She was very intent on informing us, hey, make sure you have your mask on. I don't want to see any of you get fined or ticketed. They have security, and they are looking very hard at people and making sure that they wear masks. So when you go to these ports, please, again, a little more strict and mask enforcement. It's getting a little windy, so let me shut up for a second. Let you look at the front of the ship. So yeah, Cozumel, you'll see, pretty much everybody walking around with a mask outside. And I understand from, I guess, an American's point of view, really the thinking has gone along the lines of, hey, if you're outside, you can social distance. You really don't need to wear a mask. So honestly, sometimes it seems like a little bit of overkill, but then you think about it logically, and many of these countries, islands, they don't have, the amount of, I guess you could say, medical advancements. They probably don't have the abundance of vaccinations that we have. So the spread is a little bit more of a challenge for them and them fighting COVID. And again, this is something that shut down the world. Obviously, it's shut down the cruise industry. So I guess I get it, they're being a little bit more strict because they can't have their economies impacted negatively as they were. Again, we can't go through that again. So we all gotta do our part. We just have to do it, help them out, and in turn, reward for us as we get back to normal. We're enjoying some of that reward right now, coming back to cruising. Okay, one thing, again, this is probably related to COVID, but it was disappointing to hear. I found out from a crew member that I was talking about their time off, when they have days off or time off during the ship. Those of you that have cruised Carnival and other cruise lines, I don't know how it is on other cruise lines. I can only speak for Carnival, and this is just what I heard from one of the crew members. But apparently they're not being allowed during their time off to walk the areas of the ship that, paying passengers are using. I remember in the past, they would have crew members and they would have name tags on, and that was their thing. They might be dressed up enjoying a night out. Maybe they'd be at the Alchemy Bar, or maybe they'd be at one of the specialty restaurants, or maybe they'd be at the dive-in theater, but they would have their, name tags on, and otherwise might be dressed in normal clothes. They'd usually hang out together in some way, shape, or form. But once this crew member told me that, I kind of reflected on it to think, for the past 2 weeks, I've seen any crew members just on personal time walking around the ship. And to be honest, I haven't. So I believe that's the case. Now, again, that could be COVID related, and I'm sure from a PR standpoint, that's what Carnival would say. But again, those of us that know the cruise industry, we know how hard these people work, and it's just discouraging to see that they can't have more time for themselves, especially when they're working 12-hour days, and some of them don't get a day off at all. So hopefully that's something that changes in the near future too. And it might just be a short-term issue, but I hope that's something that changes. Okay, so let's get to some of the things that haven't changed. And this is a good list. So, the fun has not changed. In fact, in some ways, it may be even better. Because of the lower capacity, you have shorter lines, less of a wait when you're wanting to get food, things like that. The ship doesn't seem so congested. One thing that is always congested is the comedy. I think some of the bigger ships or the ships that are being built, ones that are just coming out, hopefully they've paid attention to the comedy and how popular it is, because especially for the adult shows, the comedy's always packed. I mean, there is a line seemingly a mile long to get in, and usually if you're not there at least 15 minutes early, you're not getting a seat. And some people just, don't want to stand up the whole show, the front of the ship, and want to stop again. In the first video, but this is deck 5. If I didn't say this already, I mean, this is where I do my walk. Not everybody knows about this. People think you gotta walk the track upstairs. I like being closer to the water, and if you notice, it's now pushing 9 o'clock in the morning, and I've basically had this entire deck to myself just to walk around and talk to you all. So you really can't beat it. So this is one of those things you can really take advantage of. All right, so unchanged again. The awesome crew, the fun. Crew is amazing. Probably even more so. They're fresh off a long delay, in cruising. And so I think their batteries are fully charged, and they're just giving you the best of everything they got, which is always good. But it's even more so now. And so happy to see some of them back, well, all of them back, but for how much it means to them to be able to provide for their families and get back to work and make a living. And we got to keep this going. We got to keep it going. I hope that, whether those people that agree with vaccinations or not, or whatever, I hope we get to a point where, it's not as much of a concern, and everybody can help each other out and trying to make sure that we get back to normal, get these masks off our face, and, just start living again. But we are doing that now, those of us cruising, and it's been wonderful. Okay, food has been really good. Really good. In the main dining room, I was talking with a lady yesterday, and we were talking about lobster night. Those of you that cruise, that's the first elegant night. You get lobster tail. The other choice a lot of people usually like is the prime rib. I usually do maybe a salad for an appetizer, and then I order a prime rib, medium rare, and a lobster tail. And usually, as big a guy as I am, don't have much of a problem knocking those two things out. So if I have a room in my belly, I go ahead and order another lobster tail and maybe another. So the lobster the first couple weeks on the ship has been great. One lady, to quote her yesterday, she said sometimes in the past it seems like the lobster has been frozen or stored for a week or whatever, then reserved again or whatever. But she's like, I can't believe how tender and juicy the lobster was, and I agree. It's probably the best lobster that I've had on a Carnival ship these first couple weeks. Great quality. And the food that I've ordered, I can't think of any food that I was disappointed in the main dining room. It's all been really, really good. So kudos to Carnival and the cooking on board. I know there has been some complaints again about service and how long that's taken. I think that's improved because we haven't had a problem. One little trick that you might like is if you order more than one appetizer, for example, tell them to bring you both at once. I mean, all this food is prepared in large quantities, so they usually have the appetizers and everything all ready to go. But it's traditional dining. Enjoy your meal course by course. If you do 2 appetizers, for example, you're usually going to get one and then eat it, and then you have to wait for them to pick it up and then bring you the next course. But if you ask your server, just tell them, hey, can you bring both appetizers at the same time? And they will usually. Okay, so that can save you some time if you don't want to spend as much time dining, and you want to get out, watch the shows, comedy, whatever it may be. You can do that. Go to the front of the ship again. So let me shut up. There's the breeze. Too windy. Sometimes the front of the ship it's super windy. Not too bad. Once we're around the corner, we're gonna get a little bit worse. Okay, getting back to the food. Now the steakhouse. That is one place that I've heard some complaints. And one particular cut of meat that I'm going to talk about that my wife and I just love, and prior to the pandemic, it's all we would order is the Wagyu beef steak. Now, I told my buddy Brent, like, you gotta eat this Wagyu. I mean, I always get it on here because it's so darn expensive that we don't order it at home. But when you just order one steak and it's through Carnival, again, you just pay your one fee and you got it. So it's always been amazing. It really has. It's always been amazing. And last week with Brent, it was very good, but not amazing. Not that same level of amazing that we're used to. And I spoke with other people that had the surf and turf, for example, and they were a little disappointed. I've never gotten the surf and turf. I've always felt like, the Wagyu is so good, and I don't know, I just never got it, so it didn't surprise me as much. People said surf and turf, but then I heard a few people complaining about the Wagyu. So yesterday, my wife and I went to the steakhouse, and I asked one of the servers, like, what's going on with the Wagyu? We love this, it's amazing, whatever. And they said that pre-pandemic, the Wagyu was not always Australian. It was Japanese sometime, and then sometimes Australian. And he seemed to suggest that this was the Australian Wagyu, and it was a little chewier, whatever. And so appreciated that comment. Didn't want to have the same experience where we weren't just amazed as we usually are with the Wagyu. So we went ahead and ordered a different steak. I ordered the ribeye, 18 ounces of heaven, and my wife ordered the cowboy steak. Always, we both get medium rare, and it was amazing. Very, very good, very tender, very juicy. Lobster bisque, that's another thing that we always order and love, and lobster bisque has been amazing in the steakhouse. So those are two things that I can tell you that we ordered that we really, really enjoyed. Skip dessert because we're just too full, but cowboy steak and ribeye, two things I can recommend that I can say were phenomenal. Okay, so that's what we have. The beauty of the islands, as you suspect, that has not changed. That's been wonderful. One of my other videos, swimming with sharks, it's a little 5-minute video. Yesterday I was with my friend that I used to teach with and coach. She was the girls coach, I was the boys coach. We hung out and we're on a catamaran, did some great snorkeling, saw an eagle ray, saw a turtle, obviously a lot of fish. Just a great time hanging out with her. And next week we're going deep sea fishing, so be on the lookout in a week or two for video of me catching a big fish, hopefully. That's always a lot of fun. My wife had done that a couple times in Cabo. We just had a great time, so I'm hoping to enjoy that as well. A couple things again I wanted to point out. Big water bottles in the main dining room. Okay, there was a discussion previously, pre-pandemic, that they were going to do away with giving out the big bottles of water. I was concerned with that because my wife and I, we always do the Cheers package, and one of the big perks of the Cheers package is when you're in the main dining room, you can get a big bottle of water, each of you, and take that back to your room. So when we do something like I'm doing right now, walking the ship, getting some exercise, whatever, it's good to have that big bottle of water. Also, if you're taking advantage of the Cheers program, you're probably drinking a little too much. And so when you can get out here and get a little exercise, get some sweat going, maybe go to the sauna, take your big bottle of water with you and sweat a lot of that bad toxin out of you. So it's a good thing. I'm going to try to wrap this up, but Cheers, I overheard some people talking. They've gotten Cheers. They're relatively new to Cheers. They didn't know, so I'm sharing this with you. If you've thought about getting Cheers, didn't know how it worked, this is how it works. Okay, Cheers, you get 15 drinks that contain alcohol. All right, 15 drinks that contain alcohol. This is the part that they didn't understand. They thought they got 15 drinks. So they, for example, if they wanted to get a Pepsi or a coffee from the coffee shop, they thought that that was one or two of the drinks of their total of 15. Wrong. Okay, if you order Cheers, you can have 15 drinks that contain alcohol and an unlimited number of drinks that don't have alcohol. Now there is a 5-minute wait in between the drinks. So let's say, you get a margarita at the pool, say I want 2 margaritas. They're gonna say, well, you can't do it. You have to wait 5 minutes. Unless, I've never tried this, because why would you? Unless I guess you could pay for a second margarita right there on the spot. Maybe if you were buying it for somebody that didn't have Cheers. So I guess there's that. So that's how Cheers operates. And again, big water bottles are still in play. So make sure when you go to the main dining room, we usually say order one at the beginning. And sometimes when we know we need to drink a lot of water, we'll get a second bottle at the end. So there's a couple times in the first couple weeks where I've walked out of the main dining room carrying 2 big bottles of water, and they did not go to waste. We drink them, we take them into port on our excursions, drink water. Water's always good. All right, so let me have a seat here. So again, I wanted to get you as much information as I could. What I have coming up today, again, this is the last sea day, and we have Kyndall with a Q&A session, which I'm very much interested in that because, as I mentioned to you earlier, crew member you can't do interviews. That's a Carnival policy apparently, but they have a Q&A session today with Kyndall and the Liquid Lounge Forward at 10:30. So I'm gonna try to get up there and get her on camera answering some questions that you might be interested in knowing. And then let's see, what else do we have? Oh, so the cruise this time with Anita compared to my buddy Brent. So for those of you that haven't been following, or maybe you just subscribed, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. We're just getting the page started, and I'm learning along the way as well. So the page will get better. I promise I won't make as many mistakes. Maybe you'll see that progress and say, I remember when he was really messing up, and now he's only messing up a little bit. But so when I went with Brent, he's a buddy of mine, coaching friend, and for several years, and it was his first cruise. We had the Cheers package then, and it was a marathon. Wasn't getting a lot of rest, wasn't getting to bed early. With my wife, it has been much more relaxing. I've actually caught up on some sleep, and obviously I'm getting some exercise in today. We've enjoyed some of the shows. Amor Cabano, as I mentioned, was really good. That might have been the only show we saw, but we have seen comedy. Comedy's been good, like it usually is. The dining has been good, as I mentioned. So overall, like I said, it's just been more relaxing. We maximized the fun when I was on with my buddy Brent. Late nights, a lot more drinking, and like I said, I needed a vacation from my vacation this week to recover from that first week. So next week will probably be a little bit more balanced. All right, and then I mentioned already the breeze in port, which was great to see. That means, hey, more ships are getting out of the water, more are going to be returning, and that's huge for the people that work in the tourism industry. Talked about this in the interview with Natalie in Belize. They're very dependent upon our tourism dollars. So in Belize, we only have the Carnival Vista visiting, and that's not going to change for the foreseeable future for the next several weeks, apparently. So they have one day where they can get some money from tourism dollars. The rest of the time, they're still struggling to survive. So, try to book some excursions with the locals, and get out there and support them. Belize, again, this is for all ports, but Belize, you go into port and there's nothing there that's too special. Some shopping, some bars, things like that, but you really have to book those excursions and get out and see the beauty of Belize. Like I took you to Cape Cocker. You saw how beautiful it was there. You get on some of these excursions, you see those things. If you don't book an excursion, you're going to see some shopping and some water that doesn't really look that pretty or clear. But if you get on the excursions, you get to see that. So book the excursions, do your homework, get out there and enjoy. New friends. Yesterday, I interviewed Megan Riley, who I used to teach with, as I said, and some of you probably seen that interview. We also were hanging out with James and Bobby. They are a father-son team enjoying a cruise together. And that kind of tugs at the heartstrings a little bit, because I lost my father 5 years ago. I know Bobby, I believe, is 19. And James, he served, and thank him for that. And I hope to possibly have an interview with them today before they get off the ship. But I really think that's a cool thing. If it's a mother-daughter, or if it's a father-son, and maybe you take that trip, just you two, and really enjoy each other's company, because those are the type of things you look back on fondly. It was about 5 years ago that I lost my father, and probably 8 years ago, just him, my wife, and we went to a little island called Vieques in Puerto Rico, and we spent a week together. And I really look back on that experience fondly. And now my mother is not very mobile, and for the most part is just inside the house all the time. And we were able to take her to Hawaii and spend a week with her. So, if you can get that opportunity to spend with, if it's a mom-daughter, if it's a mom-son, if it's a father-son, if it's a father-daughter, but just that one-on-one, where maybe you have multiple kids, but you take that one trip with one of them, make it special for them, and they'll remember it forever. Just thinking about it, it's getting me a little bit emotional right now. So I'm telling you, that's a cool thing. And finally, the COVID testing. Doing that, I already mentioned. So I don't have anything else for you, and this has been a crazy long video, but we covered so much information. I hope some of you found it useful, and please subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to try to get this page bigger and better. A lot more people subscribing. I think we're cracked 100, or about to crack 100. And I guess that's not too bad for less than 2 weeks of being in existence as a channel. So if we can keep those numbers spiking up, we'll get better. And I have just a little shout out to a couple guys that are supposed to be coming on next week. We have Derek from Island Time, and I've talked with him, and he's a new channel that's really, taken off the first couple months that he's been. So I'm looking forward to getting some tips from him and talking shop a little bit. And then I think it's either Mark or Mike McCurdy. They have a YouTube channel that deals with photography, and trying to get some tips from them on videoing and just setting up the channel to look a lot more professional on some of these videos and things like that. So like I say, I'm going to be a work in progress too, but I'm certainly happy to share all my information that I know about cruising, and I'll continue to do that, and observations and things like that. And feel free to post in the comments any questions you might have, and I will try to get them answered for you. So until then, I will see you all later. Coach is out.